Welcome to this micro talk about productizing solution architecture components to accelerate transformation. I'm Ioannis Tzikas. I'm a software engineer for over 25 years. I'm constantly exploring new technologies and industry standards. I'm always dedicated to mentoring the next generation of developers. Businesses and organizations are in the middle of a crossroad. There are always changing market demands and technological advancements on the other side. Productizing architecture components could accelerate their business transformation. Of course, that sets a challenge on us in terms of architecture design, development practices, and team collaboration. So, if we explore a little bit the microservice architecture, where all microservices are small and independent services that communicate over well-defined APIs. So if we take it a step further and we introduce domain-specific reusable microservices, then it opens the door to easier integrations with different environments. So let's have a simple example. There's an example with a workflow engine, a project backend, project UI, some kind of identity management. It's a pretty valid REST API communication between the services. Everything are microservices. So let's go through a bit this slide, and let's say that we need to create an application. We just need to start our workflow. At some point, maybe we need to fetch data from an external service. At some point, we wait for a user input to make an improvement of some kind. So the endpoint, the user via the project UI updates the application, and then we complete the user task. At the same time, maybe we need a message event. It's pretty straightforward. It's a valid integration. It's valid architecture. Let's introduce a domain-specific service. So we introduce a domain-specific service that encapsulates all the functionality that we want. So we move away from hard coupling these integration points to something more generic. So we extract functions that we want to accomplish. So let's say we need a service to start a process. We need a way to route to a certain service to fetch data and populate our workflow. We need a way to target the correct user task in the workflow. And we need a way to target the specific message event. So what we're doing is we have a loosely coupled architecture. So when we introduce this component, this domain-specific component that only expose specific functionality, then we hide all the complexity and everything that needs to be integrated into them. So we accomplish the reusability aspect of what we want to accomplish. And let's assume that we want to deploy a product of ours to a different client. So let's say that they have their own workflow engine. in order to be able to integrate into that environment, of course, we need to replace the workflow with something else. But we only need to tweak this part or replace it if we need with a new implementation. But all the integration points between those are fixed, and we only expose the functionality. So all complexity stays in here. So we are able to deploy to different clients, to different environments with different integration systems. Of course, microservices give us the functionality to be able to use whatever technologies we want to use for each service. So in order to do that, we need to follow a few strategies. First of all, we need service-oriented architecture. And then we need to implement domain-driven design. We don't want to do proxy. We don't want to proxy one by one. We want to encapsulate the functionality of our domain. We just expose the functionality that makes sense for us and what we're trying to hide from the eventual integration point. And of course, we need to create product-like components. We need to do API-first design because API is what will allow us to hide all the complexity of the integration that we want to do. Of course, tooling is an important role. It plays an important role in what we're doing. So when we create APIs, it's going to be helpful if we do auto-generate clients, DTOs, etc., in different languages, depending on which integration we want to follow. Of course, deployments, service mesh, service discovery tools are important in this kind of architecture. Of course, you should consider what tools you want to use and what your needs are. So best practices, standardization and modularity. When we say standardization, we should be able to use standard API protocols in order to, for our services to be able to integrate in current architectures. So it shouldn't be something custom. It should be something that everybody knows and everybody talks. We should focus on modularity, of course. The system that we're trying to integrate could be a complicated one. So we are trying to reuse whatever we're doing in our integrations. Of course, automated testing, continuous integration, something that we all know, and we know what value it brings to us. Of course, something that is often overlooked is performance metrics and monitoring. We should expose all metrics from our microservices. We should track performance of them. That way we can apply monitoring tools on top of them to gather real-time performance from our components. That will allow us to identify areas of improvement, identify areas where something is about to happen, that our services is not stable enough. And mitigation can be very quickly without our service falling down. of course, one way to practice and to be able to really practice and deploy very easily, very quickly these services is by DevOps. So it is important when you have microservice architecture on your application. So questions are welcome.
Maybe I want to know what
Yeah.
you use for monitoring and tracking metrics.
Yeah, it could be whatever tools are out there. So we use open source, we use Prometheus, we use Grafana, etc. So these tools are the ones that we use to expose real-time metrics. But it depends also on what our client has available. But usually we use open source tools to expose the metrics so that any tool can gather and present. Well, thank you very much. If somebody wants to talk to me or ask questions, I'll be at the PwC booth. So please, you're welcome to drop by. Thank you.